So I'm about to do a recovery on this 2012 Sienna, and the reason is kind of obvious. The rear quarter panel kind of got ripped, and they put tape over here as a temporary thing so they could drive it around. You could see where they hit something really sharp, then it punctured the quarter panel and literally ripped the sheet right open like a sardine can and exposed this. So while they were driving around, they had tape on there. This is your rear HVAC case. That's pretty obvious here. We're in the rear. And here's your intake of your air, no filter. So if you're really dirty with dogs and kids and stuff like that, that's why these get plugged up. It'll go in. As you can see, it goes through, it goes down, it goes in here, below the evaporator case. You can see the outline of the case of the evaporator. So the evaporator goes like this. So the air in your van gets recycled, gets sucked into the blower motor, goes down, goes over the evaporator, and then it has to go through the heater core. But I think in this one, right here is the pivot point. Right here is the pivot point for the actuators for the your vent doors, let me put it that way. I'm having a brain block. And that'll determine whether the cold air bypasses the heater core and just goes straight in as cold air for cold air on a summer day, or do you just want heat? And you can have the AC off and you just blow the hot air through, and then it'll block off here and open up here and allow, this is the heater core right here. You see these two pipes that are equal in size? That is your glycol, that is your coolant, and that's going through a hot heater core right here. Now you could make the air go through, heat it up to 140 or 160 degrees, and then go into this plenum right here, and then the gears will switch on this little actuator right here, and it'll either drive it down so you have heat by your feet, or it'll go right here, and as you can see, this goes up right here in the quarter panel. Let's see if we could follow that up in there. You can see it goes up there, it goes up here, and then it divides through a network, and it comes through out here, over there, and somewhere up over there, through a network of tubes up here like this. And that is how this side of your heater case works. This one got cracked, I think somewhere it got damaged, and they're gonna replace, this whole core is gonna get replaced. And I always like to keep these for demo. I'm making up demo units because this has a heater core, and it has you could do reheat when you want to exhaust. See, this is something a house doesn't do, reheat. So if we want to get rid of humidity out of the air, like in your home, you could do this in a car, but for that $15,000 unit at your house, you can't do that. You imagine you pay more for a unit and you could do less. So in this case, you could take the air from inside your house or inside your car, and it could be, say, 40 degrees outside, 30 degrees outside, but your house is really humid and you want to get the humidity down. Or it could be a summer day. It could be 90 degrees, you're in Florida, and it's 87% humidity. You are miserable. Well, just adding air conditioning doesn't really do much. It's not enough to get the humidity down. So you could take the 90-some degrees, bring it down to, say, 80 degrees or 75 degrees, but you're still humid. You still have 90% humidity and you're uncomfortable. So what you do is you turn on the heater while you're in your house in the summertime, and you heat the hot glycol, and you run glycol through the heater. But you turn the air conditioning on at the same time. So inside your house, when it's 80 degrees, and instead of 90 or 100 degrees with high humidity, you take that indoor humid air inside your house and you run it through the blower, and you run it and you chill it down and you cool it. And it might come out 50 degrees out the other side, but you remove some of the water out of the air as it goes through the evaporator core and it comes dripping out. Well, in your house, it'll come out as condensation. But now you want to remove the water, but you don't want it too cold. Say if it's nighttime and you don't want it too cold. So what you do is you run it through the heater core and you bring it back up to the temperature. So you overcool it in the evaporator to remove out more moisture. So you could bring the temperature to the evaporator core down. But then you mix it or you totally run it through because you have 2 blend doors. You could bleed by, so you could adjust and play with the temperature of how much humidity, or you run it all the way through the heater core, and you have the choice of how much humidity by adding reheat to your system to remove more humidity, because at nighttime you don't have a big load, but you might be living in somewhere like Florida or some tropical area where you want to dehumidify at the same time you bring down the temperature inside the house. So you can cool it off and overcool, keep it running longer, and continuously pump through a little bit of warm coolant to bring the temperature back up to a set temperature you want to keep it comfortable in the house. At all the time, you're removing more water out of the house. Same thing in the car, and that's how that is. Doing a recharge over there on the 2018 Altima, can't remember what it is, and then this is a 2012 Nissan Sentra. Yeah, I think that's what this. Oh, it turned off. It had 3.9% air in it. I checked the refrigerant. Refrigerant is pure, but it has 2.9 or 3.9% air. All right, guys, I'll see you. Just a little quick rundown, because usually you guys don't get to see this where the sheet metal is ripped off of a vehicle, and you get to see this side of the inner workings while it is in place, with the coolant right here for hot water, and the air conditioning lines. Where in the hell is the AC lines? Oh, they come from down below and go up through the vehicle. Here's the drip tube for condensation. And can we see? No, we can't see where air conditioning lines. Can my eyes catch them for you? No, I can't see them. Ah, right. That's right there. I think that's the expansion. Might be the. No, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe I can see it from the other side. Let's see. Nope, that's a computer. Where do the air conditioning lines come out? You see these actuators from the other side? Going through, oh, let's go up higher. Going right there. That's the pivot point right there. Here's the actuator, here's the motor, here's the gear. As it rotates this, that door flap opens or closes. That you can see that little butterfly shape right there. It opens or closes depending on which way you want to route the air. Let's go back over here, and we can see the other one. If you can see right there, there's a pivot point going straight through. And there's the heater core case right there. That's the heater core case. Let's come over here to this side. There's the heater core case, and that was the other pivot point right there. And then you have another one with another pivot point. There's the actuator motor. There's the big gear. There's the little gear. So somewhere right here, they have something else that's blocking to what side it's going to go to. So I hope that makes some of this a little clearer on the rear AC systems. And you can see where the rear comes in right here. You see this small, it's a bigger tube. This is the small liquid tube. There's the high side. This is from the rear. This is bigger. This much bigger one is from the front. And you can see where the rear comes down into a T, and it drops right into the bigger suction line going back to the compressor. And then as you see over here, this is where it goes down right here. It's coming up this connection. It's going down and around, and it goes right back inside to the compressor right down there. That is the compressor right there. And that's its method of going back. And if you look back towards the firewall, you could see the really big suction line right there. That's to the front. And you could see the slightly smaller one in rear. And you go, why is the small one smaller than the big one? Why aren't they the same size? Well, the evaporator in the rear is usually, but not always, smaller than the front one with a little less capacity, because it just needs to add for this rear, and there's a lot of capacity in this one in the front. But the reason the line from the rear is smaller is because it has such a long length to go, and often it is turned off and there's no solenoid to turn it off. So there's a little bit of bleed by through the expansion valve, but because the expansion valve works off superheat, it limits the flow through the system. So as it chills down, it doesn't freeze, because it has superheat rule to follow because of its adjustments, because of that spring and the diaphragm with the refrigerant pressure on top that senses temperature and it controls the superheat so it doesn't allow it to go into freezing. There's still a little bit of refrigerant goes through, and they got to keep that line small because they have to keep the refrigerant velocity up, moving really fast, because as it comes down here and the lines come way down low down here underneath the car, if the refrigerant velocity falls too slow, the oil will fall out of suspension. The little droplets, the mist, the oil that is being pushed along by refrigerant flow, just pushing it along, going, go oil, get back to the compressor. So what happens is it goes so slow, the oil just falls to the bottom of the line and the oil starts building up down here. And then the oil stops making it back to the compressor, and the compressor starves for oil. And this is what happens when you run low on refrigerant, because there's not enough mass volume. The compressor burns out. Now, GM suffered this problem back in their old Suburbans, Yukons, and stuff like that, where they accidentally put I think it was a number 12 suction return line, and it was too big. And so they were compressor failure after compressor failure, just wiping out compressors, 3, 4, 5 compressors before they put out a TSB, and they made a correction and they sold you a different accumulator and a different line for $1,200. But by that time, these vehicles were several years old, and if you were unfortunate to have one of those, it was $1,200 plus labor for all the lines and everything like that. That was totaling out or coming close to the cost of the value bonus. So what I did was, when this problem first happened, right away, noticed there was a problem, and my dad taught me about refrigerant velocity and line sizing and everything like that. And when I looked at the vehicle and I noticed how many compressors were being burnt out, I said, oh, it's an oversized line, because you'd take down the line and a shitload of oil would come out of the line, and it's just not returning. Well, you could do that $1,200 in line size, but what I did on those particular vehicles was ND 47, and I put 3 extra ounces of oil into those specific models that were just burning out compressors left and right, and that took care of the problem. Instead of putting $1,200 into a line and a special accumulator that had different attachments and different size that you had to buy the whole thing, 3 ounces of oil or $1,200. Which one do you want to do? And that's what I did for the fix on those old Tahoes and Suburbans, and I can't remember, Yukons or something else. Whatever those burnout compressor problems were, the dealerships were having a big problem. It took them a long time to figure out what the problem was. It was easy. 3 ounces of oil. See you guys later.